Okay, we are picking this up having made an assembly or a component that's consisted of two wheels together. And we can see our components by going into Window, Components, and going to particularly the one that says In Model. And so you'll almost have, you'll list these up, and you can start to see my naming structure here got screwed up because I didn't make it capitals, but otherwise I've got some kind of sub pieces there. We've got some layering going on, right? And we can make changes if I want to. If I make a component here, now I've got that. What I realize, I can now then go inside of that component and I can do something like change the color, and I'll just change one of the colors here. I'm going to do a paint there. This may or may not work. I'm going to just paint the inside that little pinky there. Okay, so now that made that box. It's going to give me a little differentiation. Didn't really change it, how it behaves. And I see that I've got the start of what would be an assembly type of thing. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to kind of go through and kind of move this from my brain up on this track. And that would be, for the most part, if I move it up there and then try to move it down there, I kind of have that. And these other ones I don't really want right now, so I'm going to go ahead and right-click, erase, right-click, erase, right-click, erase, right-click, erase, because I want to have kind of a pairing of assemblies. So if I got this here, you realize now that also needs to move. I'm going to grab, and this is where you can sometimes have difficulty, as I will here in a second. I'm zooming in and out in terms of being able to grab exactly what you want. So it's a great time there to change the face style to X-ray, and you can sometimes see inside. And to get that idea that I'm laying that perfectly in the right spot. Takes a lot of work to do all that X-ray, so turn that X-ray off. That's one of the great things about SketchUp, that X-ray view. Alright, so you've got one there, and what you can do, and what we'll do on a semi-regular basis, is learn to kind of some of the more advanced skills that talk about how to link things together, at least in terms of flips. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take and I am going to bring another one of these in. I'm going to go ahead and doing that by doing a copy. I'm going to hit here, a control. I'm going to basically go hit the control key, go from here to there, and now I'm going to learn to do this. Click, right click. Flip along, and then I'll never get this one right. How about green? That doesn't work. Flip along. Components blue. And if you see, it did it, and it did it based on the centroidal component, but it did turn it around what I wanted. So I'm going to go ahead now and just pull this thing back. So learning to do these flip alongs, taking it right down here and trying to get to the point there. And once again going into view, face style, X-ray. Hopefully I can grab exactly what I want there. And now I have essentially a component turning off the view, turning off the X-ray. I've got another kind of component, and we're going to realize as I start playing with these things I'll have some issues, because in the end I need to get rid of these axes in the very, very end. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and take this, and let's see. How is that going to work? Well, for now, I'll just leave it as it is. I'm going to once again say edit. Sorry, grab my things, this one, holding the shift card, and this one, and saying edit, make component. This time it is a double wheel, assembly underscore double. We're going to set our component axes. This time it's not so obvious. Perhaps we want to go out to there, and now we've got our axes set. But in all reality, that's probably not the way to set the axes. I would rather go here. There is my X, there is my Y, and I have this kind of axis going right up like the other ones that I'm going to create. I now have something I can go ahead and use a array on. So depending on how I have this wheel assembly, I can take this and I'm going to take it and grab an array in SketchUp is slightly different. An array in SketchUp uses the same commands as the move and the rotate and just uses a times. So I'm going to grab this, move. I'm going to just grab two places along here. This would be another parameter number if you think about it. I can go along here. I had diameters of 150, and so I might want to make this something like 160. If I've got my distance locked down, it does that, and so I've got them separated, and then I can say something like 4 times. And that gives me 5 assemblies. You can imagine the process now, but if you look at here, you've got to come back because the way I started my line does not work. So I'm going to go Edit, Undo Array, and try it a little bit better this time. I'm going to grab, going to say M for move, or hit that, hit a Control. I'm going to grab right along this line, get it going the way I want, and then say 160, and then say 4 times. You might be starting to recognize this as the assembly, and I haven't looked at the Schweeb, I've just looked at the general concept. We'll look at it a little bit here in a second. Looks like the same general concept as exists in a chairlift in this state, aka what happened out in the Dells last year. And if you notice here, I've got some issues already because my separation on my pretend rail is not the same as my wheels, but that's just there for concept for now. These are all would be parameters, and we're going to look at how we can be a little bit more exact than this in AutoCAD and or Inventor, but with the goal of getting something that you have access to once you're done with class. Right? I'm going to grab each of these things now, and you can keep on going component, 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 but you might want to not overly nest components. So I'm going to grab all these together and hit my move command and hit the Control key and go down again. Right? And I went down there, and I could probably go a little bit more. I can maybe go 250. I can type it in, and I could probably look at it and go, no, maybe 300, and we'll call that good for now. Hit there. Now these, however, you might want to now shift. You remember you made this 160, you might want to shift them all 80. So I'm going to grab 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Realizing that you can, like the relative, you can go here, get it along that distance, and say 180. And I grabbed too many, so I'm going to go Edit, Undo, Move, try to grab them again. 1, holding the Shift key, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks like it grabbed this one up on top. So I'm holding a Shift key and not grabbing it. Holding the Shift key, then grab that one. And now I'm going to use the Move command, and I'm going to move them 80. I pick a line that I like, and I can say something like 80. I think I made the 160 apart, which means now I can lose this last one. And I've got something that starts to look like something that will run along a track with relatively few problems. Of course, you've got lots of design things there that you'll have to worry about, and you'll need to bind these to something. So these are all going to have to be bound by being welded to a plate with a set of hinges. But you have a pretty good assembly. So at this point, you might decide what is going to be your insert on the assembly. And I would give you this. It might not be a bad spot to put the assembly insert at the intersection of 2 points, which would probably be something mathematically important. And it might not be a bad thing to have that axes coming directly perpendicular out or down along the edge. So learning to take and grab holding a shift key, and then say move, picking an arbitrary point, and then saying relative, which is a less than, relative 0, I'm sorry, this would be something like relative maybe 50 in the x, 0 in the y, and 0 in the z. Closing that with the close bracket, and that just moved that. Now what it didn't do is copy it, so I'm going to hit a control key and do it again, and notice that it'll learn to grab some of these ones we've done in the past, but you got to make sure that it's grabbing the right axes. And then now finally I'm going to go one more time to a join axis, make sure the layering works. I've been on Schweeb the whole time. I might want to go back to join axes and draw a line from that point to that point. Once again, going to get rid of a lot of these lines later, but we can go ahead and get rid of these. Because in effect now, you don't necessarily have what you want. Later on you can come back and change some of these things. But we're more or less looking at, we have a line here that makes sense, but what is going to be your axis of definition? It probably will be something else, so we're going to go ahead and draft a line from here going in that general direction down the green. You notice how it's kind of there, so it's going in that general direction, and we can then draft a line from here in a general direction up, and we have in front of us our axes for definition. We can now grab each of our things, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and go right click, make component, and it says set component axes. I've got something I can grab to now, that in the X, that in the Y, and we are going to call this wheel assembly underscore full. Now create, except we're not on the join axes, and we're going to see later what we might have screwed up. So create. Alright, now you have something that in effect, if you're going to start designing, you have some kind of good general knowledge of where things are grabbing. You notice there you've got a little bit of something that we had thought about. You know, we can look at distances here, but now we can take this general wheel assembly and perhaps put it on a track or copy it. So I'm going to grab here, grab that, I'm going to hit control, and that track might not be straight. It might have a lot of different curves, and so we could lay this out, but for now I'm just going to lay this, it's going in a general direction. I'll make them 2 meters apart. I can hit 2M here, and I can say maybe 30 times, and I've got 30 now Schweebs running down the track. And hopefully the problem I have is all this stuff was put on join axes, so I probably will screw it all up, because the goal would now be, if I turn off join axes, I can't hide the current layer. I'm going to turn my current layer to Schweeb, which would have made more sense, turn off the join axes, and I erase them all. So when we start talking about layering, you see the problem there. My issue going back now is to go into each of those and make sure I have layered them in the right places. So checking that as you go through, or in the end, it's really not of great interest. We can go back if we want here. I'm going to file, save this, because I got a lot of work into it, 30 minutes and no saving. SketchUp, I think, has an automatic save. AutoCAD has an automatic save, but one of the most important things you can do is get that thing set up. So I'm going to go ahead and here now say File, Save As, and I'm going to start saving these as we go now. Schweeb underscore 30 minutes. So I've got 30 minutes of design. I'm doing this in real time. We'll have to have some students edit down, grab out some of the skills, do it in other programs as well. And the goal here is to kind of show you the relationship between design and a couple different programs: AutoCAD, SketchUp, and Inventor. Thanks for listening. We'll try to make this thing sing down the track within the next 2 videos.